Why would a cursed knight from the Vatican awaken a pagan Viking warrior buried for centuries?
Because the dead king they both feared had already risen.
Tell me the truth about the Forsaken Knights, not the myths, the real story.
But this isn't just story time. This is blood memory. You want to know about the Forsaken Knights? You came here seeking stories? What the world calls legends, what scholars call heresy, what the Vatican would rather see burned.
Then you have to understand the one man who predates them all.
Bödvar Bjarki, the bear warrior, my ancestor. His legacy didn't begin in glory. It began in shadow, in grief, in blood. He was born in the frost-bitten cradle of Gateland, what you'd call southern Sweden today. His father, Bjorn, was cursed by a vulva, a Norse seeress whose wrath didn't just ruin lives, it rewrote them. From that curse came Bödvar. His birth was a sin against nature, a violation of order. Even as a boy, he wasn't normal. He could silence an entire longhouse with a glance, amber eyes, that shimmered like fire under frost. By the time he was 15, he could snap oaken shields in half, not with rage, with silence, with presence. When he reached manhood, he began to suffer nightmares he could not master, visions that tore his spirit from his body and hurled it across the astral plane. In those hours, his flesh twisted into the hulking form of a raging bear, a beast of pure instinct and fury. Each night he was powerless, a prisoner within his own curse, until the first cracks of dawn forced his soul back into mortal skin. He underwent the Hamramar rite, the forbidden shamanic trance that let Norse warriors unleash their hammer, their spirit, outside their bodies, with total control. But unlike the berserkers, who raged in madness, Bödvar's trance took him further. He walked into the halls of the Norn's fates incarnate, and there he met her, Skuld, the Norn of what shall come. She didn't speak in riddles, she spoke in fire.
Bear child, your rage is not yours. It belongs to the world yet to come. You will face warriors who wear rings made of sky metal. They are half men, half shadow. One of them will come bearing all three alone.
What happened next?
Years passed.
Bödvar roamed as a warlord's blade until he came to Denmark, to King Hrolf, Kraki's court, where a shadow plagued their great hall every winter solstice. It didn't bleed, it didn't scream, it devoured. Men were found with mouths frozen mid-cry, hearts turned to ash. Bödvar waited, and when the thing came, he didn't raise a sword. He entered his trance. His hammer exploded into the room, a ghostly bear, massive, shimmering with otherworldly strength. It fought the shadow and won, but it left something behind in Bödvar, a crack. He became more beast than man. And when the shadow of Adils, a Swedish sorcerer king, returned, Bödvar wasn't ready. Adils wasn't like other kings. He didn't conquer with armies. He corrupted. He harvested souls like crops at night. His warlocks tore people from their homes, binding their spirits in molten rings, twisting flesh into weapons. One night, while Bödvar raided along the Danish coast, Adils sent his priests to Gateland. They didn't come for conquest. They came for vengeance. Bödvar's longhouse was reduced to rot and fire. His wife, his sons, all taken, not killed, harvested. Their souls turned into fuel. Their eyes stared at him from the smoke when he returned, still glowing, still screaming. Bödvar swore vengeance, not with honor, with hatred. He met Adils at the Battle of Hleidergard.
I am not afraid of you, Adils. You should be, Bödvar.
Steel against sorcery, man against shadow. He entered the trance one final time, but this time he didn't ascend. He fell into a black abyss where Adils waited, not as a man, but a god-shaped void.
You'll never wake. Your sons power my rise. Their screams are the mortar of my throne.
And then, silence. Bödvar was sealed in a tomb for centuries, his body mummified by ritual.
Silence, sleep, be still.
cursed to dream forever, until someone woke him, and not just anyone, a knight, one of the Forsaken.
Only one knight? Why? Where is the other two?
Isn't there 3 total?
The book doesn't mention why, and some speculate that they were experimenting with all 3 rings on one night. Some debate whether they died or were consumed by the rings.
Kdogan woke Bödvar from the tomb, and that wasn't mercy. That was strategy.
Sir Kdogan. He appeared in the year 1296, wearing sleek, blackened armor that shimmered like obsidian under. Torchlight, a molten red cross was seared into his chest plate, glowing like hellfire. His face was never seen. Only his eyes, burning behind the visor with the mark of Asodius, the first demon bound by the rings. Adils had returned, not as a man, but as a necromancer king of the undead, and he had raised an army. So, Kdogan woke him.
Why? Why would a knight of the Vatican bring back a pagan warrior cursed by the old gods? Because maybe the Vatican didn't send him. The Forsaken Knights were made in secret, not in service of heaven, but of war.
The rings they wear were unearthed in the ruins beneath Jerusalem, deep in the shadows under Solomon's temple.
What is this place? It feels ancient. Be careful what you touch.
The men who found them, Templars, were devout, but power doesn't know faith. It only knows hunger.
The rings gave them command over shadow, over flame, and over thought itself, but they also cursed them. They stopped aging, they stopped sleeping. Their eyes burned with the things they saw, and slowly, one by one, the 3 knights lost their names, their pasts, and their souls. But Kdogan, he didn't go mad. He grew stronger. He took the other 2 rings, whether by mercy or murder, no one knows. What remains is this. He now bears all 3, and he came not for conquest, but for strategy. Adils had risen again, and Kdogan knew that even his cursed gifts weren't enough to stop him. So he turned to legend, to the bear. Bödvar awoke in darkness, not metaphorical darkness. Stone, silence, and centuries had wrapped him like a womb. But something stirred. He felt his own breath again, fire in his chest, cold air on his lips. The runes around his tomb were broken, and before him stood a figure in obsidian armor. Sir Kdogan. Neither spoke. Bödvar rose slowly, his limbs stiff, his mind catching up with centuries of memory. He saw the cross. On the knight's chest, the molten red glow pulsing like a cursed heartbeat. He saw the 3 rings, one on each knuckle of his left hand, each etched with ancient runes that twisted when you looked too long.
Why? Because he's back.
The air shifted. Bödvar didn't need to ask who. They traveled north. The forests were thinner now. The mountains, scarred by mining. Villages stood on sacred earth where barrows once rested, but the bones still remembered. At night, Bödvar could feel them. The bones of the old warriors. They whispered in the dirt, and they were waking. In a ruined monastery outside Uppsala, they found the first signs. The monks were dead, torn apart, not by blades, but by hands. Enormous hands, wrapped in decomposed flesh, with bone knuckles and rusted weapons fused to their arms. They'd walked through the monastery like giants, smashing walls, dragging monks from prayer to slaughter. On the walls, Adil's runes burned black. His mark had returned, but worse, one monk remained alive, blind, lips sewn shut, hands flayed, and yet he pointed north toward the Black Fjord, toward the graveyard of kings. They sailed, an old longship, reanimated by Kdogan's power. The sails stitched with shadow, the hull refusing to rot. The sea was cold, but the sky, worse. The stars were wrong, twisted, rearranged, as if fate itself was watching. At night, Bödvar dreamed of his sons, screaming from inside glowing orbs, their bodies torn and reforming endlessly. Adils was harvesting again, and every soul taken fed the thing he was building. Kdogan rarely spoke, but one night, under a blood moon, he finally answered a question.
What is he making?
An army, but not just of the dead, of the undying.
What did he mean? Of the undying. Bödvar didn't understand. So Kdogan explained.
Adils was not raising skeletons. He was fusing them with the living.
Melding flesh and bone through necrotic fire, creating warriors that couldn't die, couldn't tire. Viking husks, twice the size of men, armored with soul-forged metal, eyes burning with stolen life. His sons were the prototypes, and soon he'd have thousands.
Wait, he's building a new race?
Not race. Legion. They reached the fjord at twilight. Smoke
Curled from the mountain's mouth. It wasn't a village, it was a forge. Adils had built a black fortress atop a cliff of bones. Massive cranes lifted carcasses into its belly. Flames belched from vents carved into the stone. You could hear the screams, high, constant, and not fully human. They didn't wait. Kdogan conjured his weapons, shadow-forged swords that bled flame and thought. Bödvar shifted, his body rippling into the great bear, larger than any beast of the land. His claws etched runes into the stone as he moved. They charged the gates. It was not a battle, it was an earthquake. Adils' creatures poured from the fortress, hulking, screaming monsters of bone and sinew, swinging axes the size of doors, their flesh stitched with magic. Some had no faces, only gaping maws of flame. Others wept blood as they fought, laughing in dead men's voices. Bödvar tore through them, claws rending armor like parchment. He fought not with rage, but with precision, purpose. Each kill brought him closer to the core. Kdogan was a blur, one moment in shadow, the next slicing through 4 enemies with molten blades. The rings pulsed, each feeding on death, flaring with infernal light. But it wasn't enough. They just kept coming. Then, the sky split, and Adils appeared, not as a man, but as a floating corpse king, his body sewn from a dozen warriors, his crown fused to his skull, his eyes glowing with his son's stolen souls.
You're too late,
He said. The mountain shook. Behind him, a door opened, and from it poured hundreds, no, thousands of the new warriors, all bearing his mark. They moved in formation. They screamed without mouths. They bled light. Bödvar hesitated. Even he knew they couldn't win this fight. Kdogan stepped forward.
I bind you by ash, by blood, by void.
The sky burned, and something answered. The sky turned black, not from clouds, but from something ancient awakening. When Sir Kdogan spoke the binding words, the rings responded like beasts set loose. Each pulsed with a different energy, shadow, flame, and madness. The earth cracked beneath his feet as he raised his hand toward the horde spilling from Adils' fortress. A ripple moved through the air. The mountains echoed. The Forsaken Knight was calling on the full power of the rings, something not even their original bearers dared attempt. Bödvar had seen much in his centuries, but this was different. Not divine, not demonic, something older. The power felt like it had no origin, like it was born in the space between creation and oblivion.
You think you've mastered those toys? I forged souls before you had a name.
With a flick of his rotting wrist, Adils hurled a wave of necrotic fire across the battlefield. The flames weren't just heat, they screamed, a chorus of imprisoned spirits trying to claw free. The fire hit Kdogan directly, and yet the knight didn't burn, he absorbed it. The flames were drawn into his armor, through the lines of the molten red cross that now pulsed like a living brand. The edges of his plates darkened further. His body shifted, plates breaking and reforging, as if the armor was growing around him. His eyes blazed brighter than ever, white hot at the core, wrapped in concentric red rings. Bödvar saw the shift and knew Kdogan wasn't human anymore. He was becoming something else, a vessel for the rings, a living boundary between damnation and salvation. The army surged. Hundreds of undead Vikings charged. Their war cries were silent, mouths wide but no sound. Their eyes burned blue. Their axes dripped with cursed ash that ate through stone. These weren't mere corpses. These were designed, built like siege engines, programmed with hate. Bödvar transformed again, but this time, not into the same bear as before. This form was darker, leaner, faster. Fur gave way to sinew stretched over armored ribs. His claws became blades, etched with Skuld's runes. His breath came out in a mist of frost and soul smoke. His transformation had evolved. Kdogan's presence, the energy of the rings, it was mutating him. Together, they charged. The clash was thunder and nightmare. Kdogan moved like a force of nature. Every ring granted him a separate edge. One moment, shadows wrapped around his enemies like serpents. The next, his blades screamed with fire that didn't burn but disintegrated. And worst of all, his third ring, the Ring of Mind, whispered madness. Any warrior that stared too long into Kdogan's eyes dropped their weapons and tore at their own faces. Their minds flooded with hallucinations of every soul they had ever wronged. Bödvar was just as unstoppable. He ripped undead apart with supernatural fury, one swipe sending a creature's upper half spinning through the air, another flattening three into pulp. He used their own axes against them. He ripped enchanted helms from their heads and bit through them, his jaws like hydraulic presses forged in myth. But for every 10 they felled, 20 took their place. Adils hovered above the battlefield, laughing.
You cannot kill what has no soul. These are not men. These are concepts. All of you are mine. Pain, rage, death. They have no fear, no fatigue. You fight inevitability. Then I'll fight forever.
He hurled his twin blades like spears, one embedded in a tower, exploding it outward. The other pierced Adils' shoulder, spinning him back mid-air. The necromancer shrieked. Bödvar leapt, using the explosion to propel himself skyward. He reached Adils mid-air, clawed hand glowing with frost runes, and punched the Corpse King in the chest. Bones cracked like thunder. Adils plummeted from the sky and hit the ground so hard the earth fractured. But he wasn't dead. His body broke apart, but began to reform. Limbs snapping back into place, crown reattaching to skull. He laughed as his blood flowed backward into his veins.
You think I haven't died before? I make death my consort.
Kdogan landed beside Bödvar.
We can't kill him,
Bödvar growled.
but we can seal him.
Kdogan said. He reached into a satchel and pulled out a scroll, the same color as the rings, etched in bleeding ink. It was a piece of the original Codex, the one hidden beneath Solomon's temple. A forgotten rite, dangerous, final. Cover me, Kdogan said. Bödvar nodded. Without hesitation, he lunged back into the fight, carving a bloodied path through Adils' guard. Kdogan unrolled the scroll, planted his blade in the earth, and began to chant. The ground screamed. A vortex opened at the center of the field. Winds howled. Fire bent backward. Time itself shivered. Adils stopped laughing. He rushed toward the scroll, but Kdogan stood firm. His body ignited, not with fire, but with pure sigil light. The 3 rings on his hand turned black, white, and red, blending into one colorless flame.
By the grace of Asodius, I claim this power.
The sky tore open, and something ancient looked through.
You will join them now.
Just as the vortex began to consume Adils, dragging his essence upward, tearing him from his stolen body, he reached out, a single scream tearing across the battlefield.
Still don't know what I've become.
The spell collapsed. Kdogan fell to one knee. The scroll burned away in a gust of wind. Bödvar stood beside him, bloodied and panting. Adils was gone, but the mountain still trembled. And then, quiet. No more undead, no more fire, only silence.
Did they win? They survived, but no one won.
The stone tomb cracked like thunder. Sir Kdogan stood before it, the third ring glowing with dark, ethereal energy, his armor flickering between shadow and flame.
The incantation has been uttered. The last of the sacred seals shatters.
And then came the roar. Bödvar Bjarki exploded from the crypt, not crawling, not groaning, but in full, furious charge. No time for breath, no recognition in his eyes, only primal rage. His body, still human, was already changing, not drifting into the astral, not entering trance. He physically transformed, right on the battlefield. Flesh tore, bone expanded, muscles snapped into monstrous proportions. His skin blistered into dark fur, armor-like and glistening with ancient blood rites. For the first time, Bödvar transformed without sleep. He awoke as the bear. Kdogan barely braced before Bödvar struck, slamming into him like a siege beast. The knight flew back 30 feet, metal grinding against stone. He rose slowly, unharmed, glowing. The 3 rings activated simultaneously. From the ring of shadows emerged a sentient mist, forming into clawed appendages that lashed out around him. From the ring of flame, molten glyphs carved through the air, each one exploding with fiery power. From the ring of mind, a pulse of energy shot forward, silent, invisible, aiming to fracture Bjarki's sanity. But Bödvar was already broken.
You wore their faces in my dreams.
He charged again. Kdogan met him halfway. The impact cracked ancient stone and shook the chamber walls. Dust cascaded from the ceiling. Runes flickered and died, and the stale air rippled with force as the tomb itself seemed to convulse. Blow for blow, beast and knight clashed. Power against power, curse against curse. Kdogan moved with supernatural precision, his blade arcs impossible to track. The shadow entity fought beside him, blocking strikes, blinding Bjarki. But the bear warrior fought like a god born in rage. Every strike cracked the land. Every roar disrupted the knight's balance. Bjarki's claws glowed blue now, runes from skull etched into his mutated hands, channeling ancestral wrath.
You don't know what you've done.
Bödvar roared, pummeling the ground and sending shockwaves in all directions.
I do. You're our only chance.
Liar! Suddenly, the ground around them split, as if the mountain itself rejected their power. A dome of glowing symbols erupted, cast from Kdogan's rings, trapping them in a binding field.
I didn't come to kill you, bear. I came to wake you. I saw your rage. I saw what Adils did. I saw your wife, your sons. Don't speak of them. They're not dead. What?
I saw them in a dream, not a vision. Adils never destroyed their souls.
They live as prisoners. He fed on their pain.
Bödvar collapsed to one knee, shaking. A new kind of fury filled him.
What is this war?
Kdogan knelt beside him.
That's what I don't know. The rings called me to wake you.
But I don't know if that call was mine, the Pope's, or
the other 2 Forsaken Knight? Or something else?
An uneasy silence passed between them. 2 monsters forged by trauma, ancient powers, and prophecy. They stood together now, because the real enemy still waited, somewhere beneath stone and bone, waiting to rise. And this was just the beginning. The battlefield was ash and bone. Bödvar stood in silence, his fur matted with blood, his own and that of the undead. Around him, broken bodies twitched with dying curses. The fortress behind them groaned, its walls crumbling under the weight of a war it was never meant to survive. Sir Kdogan leaned heavily against his sword, the glow of the 3 rings now flickering like candles in the wind. His armor hissed, releasing small clouds of steam as the energy pulsing through it cooled. The power he had unleashed had a price. Neither man spoke for a while, because they both knew this wasn't over. The vortex had collapsed. Adils was gone, but not dead. Banished, maybe. Scattered across dimensions? Perhaps. But even now, the land trembled. The magic lingered like mold in a crypt. The fortress had gone quiet, but not empty. Something still watched. Something still waited.
What was that? A holding spell, not a kill. You couldn't kill him? I didn't say that. Then why didn't you? That scroll was one of 3. Written in the Temple of the Rings before the Crusades. They were designed to seal the gate. Gate to what? To what comes next.
They walked deeper into the now dead fortress. Runes still pulsed on the walls, some in Old Norse, others in ancient Latin, and others in a language neither could name. At the heart of the chamber where Adils had once stood, they found it. A pit, A deep, yawning chasm that didn't descend into rock, but into lightless nothing. You could feel it, not just see it. It pulled at their minds. Whispers echoed from it, not through sound, but memory. Bödvar stepped to the edge.
Is this where he drew the power? No. This is where he was trying to send it.
He reached into a pouch and pulled out a fragment of the mural they had seen in the vault.
A crown of bone. A body made of hundreds. The true face of the enemy. Adils isn't the end. He's just the vessel. For what? For something the rings were made to contain, not channel.
They stood in silence. Then Bödvar asked the question that had been festering since the beginning.
Why me? Why wake me? You're the only one who can stand against him. But who told you that? Was it you? Your Vatican masters? The other Forsaken?
Kdogan didn't answer immediately. He stepped back from the pit and turned his gaze toward the sky, visible now through the broken ceiling. Stars twisted above them, still not right.
I don't know if it was me who made the decision, or the rings, or the Pope, or something worse. You don't know? When I put on the third ring, something changed. I stopped dreaming like a man.
They were both quiet for a long moment.
Then we're both puppets.
But with teeth.
They left the fortress in silence, crossing burned earth and twisted corpses. But the deeper they walked into the valley, the more they realized something unnatural was happening. The land was healing, too quickly. The sky cleared, grass began to sprout through the ash. The wind smelled clean, and Bödvar froze.
Kdogan, do you hear that?
Then he heard it too. Not wind, not whispers, laughter, childlike, distant, echoing through the valley as if the earth itself was mocking them. They both drew their weapons. Nothing came, only the laughter, then silence. But neither would forget that sound.
Wait, you're saying Adils was just a servant?
Yes. A herald. A builder. He harvested souls to make a vessel. But the thing he built it for, that hasn't come yet. And the rings, they're changing Kdogan. Every day.
He's not the same man who put on the first one. And Bödvar? His rage is mutating too. He doesn't need rituals anymore.
He's evolving. Becoming something closer to a god. Or a monster.
So what happens now?
No letters, no prophecy. But the Codex changed again, 2 nights ago.
It grew a new page. Just one. It read, "The Temple of the Rings shall open when the 3 moons bleed.
The bear will walk into fire. The night will kneel to shadow. And the door shall speak."
What does it mean?
I don't know. But I think we'll find out soon.
Erik closes the codex slowly. The final rune glows. The lanterns flicker. And somewhere, beneath cathedral floors, beneath ruined fjords, beneath forgotten bones, something moves.